Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Inspirations. I am very excited about today's episode, something that I'm going to start doing on a regular basis. I'm going to kind of change up the format a little bit here and there, but I have all of these inspirational quotes that if you guys are already familiar with my page, you know that I love writing quotes. So today's episode, I'm going to be going over this particular quote, which is, any ex in your life has been a teacher. What did you learn? Okay, so I think this is really important because one of the things that we all work on is our shadow work, right? Like what's going on in our unconscious mind, where we might have some enemy images of people that have, been hurtful in the past or things like that. And sometimes one thing that I've noticed is that sometimes we keep them alive in our lives as the person that we last knew them to be. And, while it's understandable why we might do that, sometimes what we do is we don't really allow real healing to be facilitated in our lives. And that's something that can easily carry over into other aspects of our lives, into the next relationship, into the next job place, into the next, friendship. And we really want to be very careful of that, because we have to remember that we are spiritual beings here having a human experience. And while we're not going to sit and deny our feelings, that's not what it's about. We are going to transform, trauma into treasure. And that's something that I've been learning from one of my good friends that has been on the podcast as well, Daisy Davis. And she and I, work together and collaborate together a lot on a lot of different things, but mainly shadow work and just making sure that, we are evolving in our lives. And it's so great to have accountability partners in your life, definitely more than one. There might be certain ones that you go to about relationship issues or friendship issues or career issues, things like that. But I think it's so important that everybody have at least one really good accountability partner. So one of the things that that I was working on, so I noticed what I would do when I would talk about, a former friend or even a former boyfriend, right? And I would say their name, and there was just this energy behind it that was just still keeping the trauma and the discomfort, the disappointment. It was just keeping it alive for me in a certain way. And so I stopped saying my ex-friend, my former BFF, or, my ex-boyfriend. I stopped saying that. I just eliminated that altogether. So sometimes when I'm talking to someone that I don't know, sometimes I will say, a former boyfriend or a former, girlfriend of mine, and, she and I don't talk anymore or whatever. Now, at least if I do say it, I'll usually just say it once, and I say, you know what, anyone who's no longer in my life, I call them a teacher. And what I found is that to say teacher actually transforms that energy and makes it more, it's more about healing, and it's more about personal responsibility. Because healing, I hate to say it, and if I would have heard myself say this years ago, I would have cringed, and I would have told you how wrong you were and how it was the other person's responsibility for my healing and all of that. And, what I've realized is that it's actually my work. If someone is hurtful to me, that's my work. Healing, at least, is my work. Because a lot of times we're looking towards people who do not know how to manage their own lives or their own emotions. And we're looking to those people to heal us. And the person that hurts us is more oftentimes than not going to not be the person that heals us. And once we can kind of relieve them of that role that they may possibly never, ever, ever step into, we take control of our own happiness, and we take control of our own freedom, our own sense of moral responsibility to make sure that we are healed and that we are okay. And So that's why I really wanted to talk about this today. I think it's just so important because I see so many people kind of waiting for someone to apologize. It's probably never going to apologize. And even if they do apologize, it's not necessarily going to change all that much, because here's the thing with apologies. And I'm not anti-apology in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, I actually plan to have a whole episode with a therapist on the show where we talk about the 5 different apology languages, because I think those are all very important. And it's actually something that I'm also writing about too. The thing a lot of times that happens when people apologize is that, one, they don't really mean it. And it gives us this false sense of closure. And what I've come to realize is that closure, I'm not going to go as far as to say that closure is an illusion, but I will go as far as to say that closure is also our work. It's our work. It's not the other person's work to make sure that we have closure, because they don't always know how to go about our healing. And they also don't know how to go about their own healing. So it's almost just as silly or as asinine as, you know, saying to a person who, you know, is horrible at math and horrible at managing money, and you asking that person to be your accountant. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, you just don't want to do that to yourself. It's just going to frustrate you. You know, you didn't do it right. And they're like, I told you I suck at math. I told you that I'm really bad at managing money. And sometimes we just don't want to hear people say that, because I'm not going to even go as far as say that people don't know any better. I'm just going to say that a lot of times people have not, what's the best way I want to say it? People have not done the work on themselves, and they have not made different tools and resources available to them. And it's not that they haven't had any exposure to those tools and resources for healing relationships. It's just a matter of, you know, them not really taking that work seriously. They're not prioritizing it. And so a lot of times what will happen is they just give you this throwaway kind of bullshit apology, you know, just to get you to show up, like shut up, and get you to keep the peace, and just to kind of sweep it under the rug and just, you know, shun it so they never really have to feel like they ever have to talk about it again. And so sometimes apologies, unbeknownst to the other person, sometimes the person giving it, sometimes it doesn't come from the most like genuine, heartfelt place. It just comes from more of a place of ego. Yeah, I should apologize, but they're not really able to sit with the message that you're giving them. And so, you know, one of the things that I've learned, like I've had lots of teachers over the years, and we've all had lots of teachers over the years, even if we're talking about our parents, right? Family members, siblings, coworkers, former coworkers, you know, friendships, relationships. I've actually had way more teachers that were not romantic relationships, because, you know, obviously we have fewer romantic relationships than we do relationships with other people. So, you know, one of the things that I have definitely taken into account is that I have to take away a lesson from those experiences. And a lot of times, like for me, one, people were not ready to hear that. My friend Daisy calls it like the hard to hear messages. They weren't ready to hear it. And so sometimes they will make you addressing the problem, the issue, instead of the issue being the actual problem that you're actually observing and you're speaking, and you're wanting to get some sense of clarity and understanding about that and how to move forward. Okay. So now I'm very old school. So I am a big fan of the apology, but it has to be genuine. It has to come from a genuine place. And so, you know, one of the things that I've recently learned is that, you know, from my friend, is that she was saying how she doesn't really say she's sorry, but what she does offer is hindsight, insight, and foresight. I thought that was very, very telling, because insight of, yes, I do understand what it is that you're saying. I understand the message. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for it. I'm not going to reason it away. I'm not going to, all those things that people do. Oh, okay, well, let me bring up this thing from like last year so that I don't have to sit with the discomfort of what it is that you're trying to say to me. Insight is literally just looking inside of that situation and having a shared reality about it. Even if you don't 100% agree, but at least to understand fully what the other person is saying. That's so important. It's so important. Hindsight, yes, okay, so why, yeah, I didn't make time for you, or, I didn't show up on time, or I showed up late and then I left early, or whatever it is. The hindsight of, yes, that actually did happen. And again, like not trying to make excuses for it. And then foresight, which is, here's how I would like to handle this in the future. Here's my vision for what I would like our future interactions to be, where I make more time for you, where I show up on time, where I'm present and I'm not on my phone, like when we hang out, different things like that, because then it offers, like, so to me, that's actually an apology. That's what an apology should entail. It should entail some sense of compassion and remorse for that other person. And when people are coming to you about something, it's not to shame you. So if you feel shame, a lot of times that's your work. That's how you feel about it. And that person is probably not coming to you. I mean, unless like they're just like really mean. But a lot of times that person is just, they are coming from a very vulnerable place to come to you and say, hey, it really hurt me when ABCDFG, right? That really hurt me. And, I felt like you didn't care. I felt like you were just kind of, being dismissive of me, and just, you were taking something out on me when something else is bothering you. Whatever it is, like, you have to realize, like, someone coming to you to discuss something like that is actually a really big deal. So, sometimes, relationships and friendships have fallen apart because, that person, that teacher, was not meeting certain needs for you. Your need for uncensored honesty, your need for vulnerability, your need for mutual transparency, your need of acceptance, your need to be seen and to be heard. And so sometimes we'll just go like, that's like my ex-friend, that's my ex whoever. And, and what it does is that it keeps that story and alive, like it keeps that story alive to you in a way that just kind of reminds you of the pain. So if you can change that, just it's a little like mindset shift there of not focusing on what a person no longer is, but to the value that they did bring to your life in terms of helping you have that sense of insight of, oh, wow, I do have a need for mutual vulnerability. I do have a need for mutual transparency. I have a need for reciprocity, for a sense of clarity and understanding and belonging and value. And none of these things are wrong to have. And even if those people don't meet those needs, it doesn't mean that you're being unrealistic. It means it just might not be realistic for what they have the emotional capacity to offer you. And so when we can kind of dissolve those enemy images, X like really sounds like a punishment. X, it's not, it doesn't really have to be that extreme. And so when we can change that, we can just shift that little bit, that little bit of a mindset and go, okay, she or he showed me that, that I have some kind of unworthiness issue inside. I have some kind of issue where I feel like I don't deserve, deserve consistency, or I don't deserve to have my needs met. They showed me that I have this belief still, like even though it may not be upfront, on the surface, but deep down, I must have that need, because law of attraction is very accurate. And I know we don't like to think that it is. We like to think that certain things are just flukes, But we have to remember that, 95% of our subconscious mind is formed by the time we're age 35. So, I mean, by that time, and just building up to that, is still a lot. 17, I don't really know exactly like what the numbers are, but still, just think that you've been forming your subconscious mind for a long time. So there's a lot of layers. There are a lot of layers between, what it is that we're speaking. 5% of our conscious mind is being spoken to by the 95% of our unconscious mind. And so when we see lessons like that, we have to look at these people as who they are, as teachers. They are showing us, they are mirroring to us our belief about ourselves. And when we can really look at it from that perspective, we can kind of see, okay, also, they have a fear of being seen. They have a fear of not being loved if they actually acknowledge, that they behave this way. They have a need for being accepted, and maybe how I can, do this is I can tell them that, even if you acknowledge this, I still love you. I still care about you. I still want to be your friend. There are just certain behaviors that are toxic and unhealthy. And, this isn't about getting people to do whatever the hell you want them to do. That's not it. Okay. I'm talking specifically about unhealthy traits, something that's too far into the abuse quadrant, something that's too far into, the codependent quadrant or the attachment avoidance quadrant, something like that. And, but again, this is not about getting people to do whatever you want and then making them wrong because they don't, because that would be like completely the wrong message. And I don't want that to be filtered into that. But I just do want to make the distinction between, healthy behaviors and unhealthy behaviors, and being able to speak your needs and, make sure that they're met. And you know what, I have another quote, and, maybe I'll revisit this on a different day. But I have another quote that says, if a person would rather walk out of your life than just to have one uncomfortable conversation, let them walk. Let them walk. And not out of punishment, not out of punishing them, but if you're always going to have the energy of that around and just swept under the rug and trying to pretend that it's not there, it takes a lot of bravery to actually discuss issues, and it's actually not negative to do so. Now, if you're like talking about it every freaking day and every time you turn around after you guys have come to an understanding about it, that's a whole other thing. But just to have an initial conversation, and maybe even a follow-up conversation later on if the conversation didn't really, didn't maximize its fullest potential for facilitating healing and understanding, for sure that makes sense. But I just want to just put that out there to you guys. So again, so just part of the mindset shift is, we look at our, our exes, that's the old model as far as I'm concerned, and look at them as teachers. They taught us things, and they're trying to learn, and our responsibility in it is just to learn, better what our needs are, how we can show up better for ourselves, how we can show up in conversation, so that our side of the street is clean going in, that we're not just trying to like spitefully get someone back and be petty or anything like that. So that's the message I'm going to leave you guys with for today. So leave me your comments in the chat, and I am definitely excited to see what you guys have to say. If there's any stories that you would like to share about yourselves, and any past relationships that you've had from former teachers. And maybe you're just not clear on what the lesson is or what the lessons are. There's usually more than one. There's always more than one. Maybe you're not clear on what those lessons are, and maybe I can help clarify those for you. So I'm gonna leave you with that for now, for today, but I just wanted to reach out to you. And if you like, I can do like more of like short episodes too, in between my guest episodes, where I literally just pick a quote of the day and I just talk about it and get you guys, involved in that way, and, give you guys something to comment on, chat about in the thread. So until next time, you guys, stay tuned and stay inspired.